Hello and welcome to Nutrition and Alternative Medicine. I'm JJ Flazanes, your host. Thank you for downloading today's show. Before we get to our show and our guests, I just want to remind you that the early bird pricing is now available until the end of March for the Next Big Step. The Next Big Step is another event that I'll be putting on in September, the 20th through the 23rd in Los Angeles. I've got a very easy 5-pay plan for you all set up so that it can ease your pocketbook, so there's no excuse for not coming. We are very, very far away from it, many months, and so you've got plenty of time to do what you need to do if you're feeling stuck. Because as I've said before, and I'm going to say it during the show, when it comes to things like therapy, I'm a firm believer in the idea of the therapeutic process, and I think that for some people who can take the information that you get in a therapy session or take the experience that you get in a therapeutic situation and use that momentum to move forward, then that's perfectly fine. But there are many people who have a hard time going into an hour-long therapy session with a therapist only to dig down just deep enough to hurt, and then you leave, and nothing really shifts. And that's why I'm doing these events. I'm doing them because we need to dig down a little deeper for a little longer and not just spend 50 minutes once a week sort of reflecting and going inward in order to make change and to heal. Not to mention, we've got many different processes that we go through, from the clearing inherited emotional DNA to things like nonviolent communication. We're even going to use some imago therapy this time, which we didn't get to do in the last event because it wasn't the right time. So now it is. I actually thought before that the Releasing What Weighs You Down event that we just did in January would have been a great event for couples. And based on how it went, it was actually better for individuals. And so now the Next Big Step will be more appropriate for couples. And then next year's Releasing What Weighs You Down will also have a section for couples because I've added an extra day. So if you're interested, go to jjflazanes.com/next big step. Again, that's jjflazanes.com/next big step. Prices do go up on April 1st. Okay, today's show. Happy couple files for divorce at 10 years. This is a really great story that you'll hear more about how I met them, but what it brings up in me are other people who I know have gone through similar things. And because I don't have their permission to protect the names of the innocent, I'll just say a friend of mine years ago, when I first met her, I thought she was single. She was dating people that we were sort of networking with, and I had no idea that she was married. And the next thing I knew, I heard that she was having her 12th year anniversary. And I thought, what's that about? So I asked her, and she said that she and her husband were apart for 3 years. And she just explained to me that every time she thought about filing, she didn't. And I don't know who was the one that left and how that all worked out. But the bottom line was, here's a marriage that took a pause for 3 years and then rekindled and then continued on and is still continuing on today and very strong. Now, Sam and Patrick today, they were apart for a year, but this just goes to show you that sometimes what needs to happen is people need to take some perspective. They need to leave. And even though that idea breaks my heart and it makes it, to me, it feels inefficient, right? But that's what some people need. It's like lessons learned. How many of you need to manifest something big happening in your life before you actually change? I work with lots of people, and I'm not that way. I'm sure I am in some areas of my life, but generally speaking, especially when it comes to health and relationships, if I know and I see the trajectory of what's going to happen or what could happen if you don't do A, B, and C, and I don't want those things, I change them. And I know I'm weird. I know I'm not normal. So when I work with people and they have to be literally pushed up against the wall and bad things happening before they actually shift anything, I've come to accept and understand that that's just how it is for some people. So maybe sometimes in relationships, you need some time apart to get some perspective. And today's show will be very interesting and to see how they did it and what happened and their story. So if you're married or dating and you find yourself feeling stuck or feeling like you're done and like this just isn't working and it's too hard, hopefully today's show, plus the story I just referenced, will give you some hope and some insight, because there are answers to these things. It's not random. There really is a reason for everything. And you can use law of attraction. You can use all kinds of different ideas to make peace with whatever's going on for you. And you'll learn your lessons when you're supposed to learn them. But I hope today's show does inspire you. A little bit about Patrick and Sam Cullinane. Patrick is a serial entrepreneur who started and sold multiple businesses and developed several software applications in the logistics and supply chain industries. Patrick also helps run a men's mastermind group of over 150 members and serves on the board of One Life Fully Lived, a nonprofit geared towards helping young people find their passion through the entrepreneurial spirit and to dream, plan, and live their best lives. Sam Cullinane began her career climbing corporate ladders to achieve the rank of chief of staff to the president of an international $5 billion company. Eventually, she also took the entrepreneurial endeavors, starting a few businesses and then joining Patrick to build and sell his largest business. Sam completely switched gears in 2005 and is now a national iTunes charting songwriter and recording artist who has been invited to open for Jewel and has a song that was released in October 2017. Sam also serves as the president of a women's mastermind, Symmetry 7. Sam and Patrick have been married for over 20 years, and they would tell you they are one of the happiest couples they know. But they weren't always this happy. In fact, after 10 years of marriage, they were ready to sign the divorce papers. Sam and Patrick have now been married for 22 years, and for the last 10 years, they've grown their love, their bond, and created an amazing life together. They've become students of love, and they never looked back. Their book, released July 2017, Bigger Love, How to Have the Love of Your Life for the Rest of Your Life, is their story along with tips, tools, and tricks for taking your relationship to a higher, deeper, more satisfying level. Welcome to the show, Patrick and Sam.
Thanks for having us.
Well, you were the first couple and first act, if you will, that I actually did say yes to very ecstatically at the New Media Summit because of your story. I think your story is so important for us to hear right now and for couples and for just anyone to understand that not everything from the outside always looks as if people assume there's no problems or people haven't gone through a journey. My whole brand and my business is about transformation. It's about diving deeper. It's about having those moments, but people don't talk about those moments on a regular basis. So no one really knows what people go through. So I think it was awesome. And just to remind you, everyone listening, how I met these guys, I was at the New Media Summit, Steve Olsher's event. And as a podcaster, I was being pitched to, and Patrick and Sam walked up to me and said, "We're the happiest couple we know." And at 10 years in, we filed for divorce. And that's all they needed to say. And I said, "You're booked." So I want to pick that story up, and I want to go back a little bit. So now that everyone understands that we're talking about how to transform our relationships even when it's in the darkest moment, I want to go back and ask you guys sort of like your love story from the beginning and sort of paint the picture of how my relationship or someone who's listening's relationship might be similar to yours. So if you we could sum up the first 10 years of your marriage. If it's possible, I would love to hear from you. So whoever wants to speak first.
I will.
Okay, great, Sam.
We met at a party, and actually Pat would say we met at a bar, but I would say we met at a party, which is what you'll notice about our story is that we have very different versions of how the whole thing goes, which I think is true in most relationships.
Absolutely.
So we met and had like a whirlwind romance, and within 6 months of meeting each other, we got married and moved to a new city and had a child together. And I already had a child from a previous relationship. And the first few years were great. I mean, we were madly in love, and everything, when you're madly in love, everything's roses and rainbows, and it was perfect. And then, then time wears on and stuff happens, and you start to get edgy with each other and annoyed. And so that started to happen in our relationship, and we didn't really have any tools or know how to handle it. And in our 10th year, so that went, probably, maybe 5 years, probably were getting a little rough. And then the last 2 or 3 years were really bad. I had taken a job with a big corporation and was traveling all the time. And that also took a huge toll on our relationship because I wasn't giving it any time or attention.
Yeah, so we moved from Utah to Kansas City, where we lived for 5 years. 5 years. And when we moved back to Utah, we moved back so she could be closer to her family, and she took a corporate job, and I kind of had to I got out of the company I was working with where I had a lot of security, and I kind of had to take a little bit of a hit. And then I started working for equity with another company. And so she quickly became the new breadwinner, if you will, and focused a lot on her work. And I think that's when things started kind of turning
more south. Yeah.
When you moved or when she took the job or both?
That all happened at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So but before that, you said there was some tension. Do you think the tension was because of maybe what was going on in your relationship financially or career-wise? Obviously, it sounds like there was you guys were figuring it out and there were jobs being had and revisiting things. Do you think that had something to do with it, or do you think it was something separate?
I think it was mostly when we moved and our roles kind of changed,
Yeah, that's probably true.
And Sam, you had been married before?
Yes, very briefly.
Okay.
I think I was married for 6 months. I got pregnant when I was 19 years old in college and married the man who was the father. But that marriage didn't last very long. I actually divorced him before the baby came.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
We nicknamed him the sperm donor.
Yeah. Obviously. Okay.
And then Patrick adopted my son, so he's legally his father now.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So now you've moved. You had a couple great years in love, madly in love, and then you had a couple like starting to shake a little bit. Then you moved and you changed jobs, and now we're you said you had like maybe 5 years of not so good. And so was it a group decision to file for divorce? Was it one of you? Was there demands placed on the other one? To give me that scenario.
Well, we both knew that we were in a bad spot. She kind of caught me off guard when she said she wanted to be separated, live apart, and try it on her own for a while. So I moved out the next day. I took just my car and a limited amount of stuff. I was like, at the time, really starting to ramp up in what I was doing, and I felt like she was quitting on me a little early. So I didn't take hardly anything with me. I'm like, just keep it all. And I left with this huge chip on my shoulder and some belongings.
And I felt like I was done. So we hired a nanny. I had to have a nanny to help take care of the kids, even though Patrick was working from home. And in fairness to Patrick, I probably didn't put enough weight on what he was doing as an entrepreneur to build his business and not really understanding. I'd come home and it looked like he was playing video games all day. And we had this nanny that took care of the kids and cleaned the house, and a wonderful nanny. Her name is Mel. She's awesome. Still a great friend. And I was also working all the time. And so I was exhausted. I made all the money. I felt like I had to hire somebody to help take care of our kids in our household. And I didn't feel like I had a partner. And I thought, why the hell am I bothering? And then there was the whole thing. I'd come home and he'd be so needy, like, oh, I missed you so much. And I was like, I just need to sleep. I was traveling sometimes for weeks at a time and sometimes not sleep. We were doing big deals. And so you're up all night and it's just crazy. So I'd come home for a little rest and relaxation. And it just felt like everybody needed me. Everybody needed something from me, and especially Patrick. So I just thought, oh my God, I just can't do all this. I'm done. I got to get out.
Mm-hmm. And Patrick, you were feeling during that time?
Yeah, during that time I was, I'd miss her. She'd be gone for 2 weeks, and so when she came home, I'd want her to miss me as bad as I missed her, and be as excited to see me as I was to see her. And oftentimes she was more excited to see a pillow and a bed and kind of flat when she came home. And and I had insecurities back then that definitely helped undermine where we were. I'm like, oh, you're not excited to see me? Well, who have you been spending time with? You know what I mean? I was kind of a dork, but.
Well, it's a normal feeling. If it's, you're having, I wouldn't call you a dork. I'd call you normal. It's very normal for someone to think who knows what's going on out there. I mean, you were having some insecurities, but that's very normal.
Well, she was at the time working with all men too.
Yeah,
so.
Everybody that I worked with in my company were men. And looking back, and actually I think even during that time, I became very close friends with a lot of these guys, and I would consider what happened with some of them to be, like emotional affairs. I felt lonely. I felt so disconnected from Patrick also. And here I was in all these very intense situations, actually, where when you're working on big deals in business and, all these guys that are helping support you and also maybe flirting a little and you're flirting back. So, I wasn't completely innocent either. But when Patrick would come home and accuse me of doing things that I hadn't done, a little flirting isn't, in my opinion, is not cheating. But I'd come home and he'd be like, "Are you cheating on me?" And I was like, "No, I have plenty of opportunity to, but no, baby, I'm not cheating on you." And then the more and more he accused me, the more I was like, "Why? Well, shit, I'm already being punished for the crime. I might, maybe I should."
Right. Okay, so now we're at you've said your words were, Sam, that you wanted to be separated. You wanted to do it on your own. Were you done? Were you just thinking you needed space?
No, I felt like I was done. I just felt like I don't want to be with you anymore. I can't, I was pretty much like, yeah, it's over.
Yeah, there was probably maybe 2 months went by, and then how long would you wait before you filed for divorce?
I didn't think it was very long.
Yeah, it's 2 or 3 months, I think. We were apart for a year, so I don't know how long those things take. Her lawyer was lazy, which is awesome because he never actually filed the papers. I did sign them. And sent them back.
You did sign them. So she said she got the papers, she sent them to you, and you signed them and sent them back.
Yep.
We didn't. She got the lawyer. I didn't even get a lawyer because I signed a quick claim deed on the house. I mean, I was going to show her.
Yeah, he gave me everything.
Yeah.
Which actually, I tipped my hat to him because that was part. I thought there would be more of a fight over the things and the house and the retirement and all of the things that we had, and he just said, "Nope, I'm good. I'll figure it out myself." Which I was like, "Oh wow, really? Because you don't have shit right now."
I had my baseball card collection, and I had a bed that I built, and a toilet seat, and a lamp. I'm just kidding. It's from a movie.
I have to ask. So Sam, what's your birthday? I don't need your years. I just want your days.
Oh, September 10th.
You're a Virgo.
Yep.
Patrick?
Capricorn, January 14th.
Interesting. Okay, good. So now you didn't fight her on this at all when she said this? You said I'm done. Had there been so much like fighting maybe? Were you that you got to the place where, Patrick, you were like, okay, you moved out, but you didn't take any of your stuff. So did you think it was temporary, or when you thought it was real, you signed the papers, you were going to give her everything, you were done? Like this is it?
I mean, I used to do construction. I had a bunch of tools and stuff, and I went back and I took like my tools and stuff that was clearly mine. I mean, stuff she wouldn't argue about. I took my baseball card collection and, my bike and stuff that was mine that I wanted and needed. But and the bed that I built, that I carved our initials in, I'm like, you're not keeping that. So, because but my thought process was, if she doesn't want me, then I don't want her.
Has your belief about marriage changed from then till now?
Yeah, absolutely. Because back then we were just going to be the statistic, 50% of the people make it work, 50% don't. It might even be less now, I don't know. But now we believe that if you have the right tools and you know how to work on it, that we can take that number down to 15%.
Do you believe about any spiritual theories about relationship, or is it just really you make a choice and get some tools? It's more mechanical. You can make it work.
That's a good question.
That's a good one. Nobody's asked that.
I'm going to ask you very deep questions.
I love it. I think there is a spiritual aspect to it, but I think only in maybe the last year I've even recognized it. It felt more, we did a lot of mechanical things, but in retrospect, there's also, I have a very close spiritual relationship with Patrick.
There's one other place you recognize it. I think we both agree that there's a spiritual connection when you're having sex, if you're open to it.
Yeah, that's true. We've felt like that since we met.
Well, that's good. Very positive thing to keep as a strong thread between the two of you. Tell me about both of how you grew up in terms of both of your parents still together. Were they together? They're divorced in either of your family histories?
Yeah, my parents were together until my father passed away. So I think they were married for 40 years.
My parents are still together, but it's not necessarily a relationship that you envy. Like,
gotcha.
If I'm hanging out with them, they're always bitching about the other person.
Okay, so both your parents, there's no divorce in either one of your parents.
Oh,
yes?
Well, my mother was married to, so it's funny how history repeats. My mother married a man and then got pregnant with me, but left him before I was born, and she divorced him and then married the father that raised me, who also adopted me. So not unsimilar to, our son Jacob and how Patrick came into his life and our life.
And my parents were separated for at least twice that I remember. It was when I was younger, but I know it was 6 months to a year both times, I think.
Okay, so in a way, all these things are sort of not they've been laid out for you, they've been modeled for you before, and so none of it's sort of not that it's to be expected, but it isn't feared because it's not unknown. Correct? Would you say would that be safe?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, what point in this year-long separation did things start to turn around?
So during the separation, I got an opportunity. My company asked me to go work in Spain, in Barcelona. And so Patrick and I had a conversation about what a great opportunity that would be for the kids. And so I picked up and moved to Spain. And as part of the deal, though, Patrick could come to Spain and visit every few months. And the company would bring him over and so that he could see the kids and hang out. And the first time that he came, we could have gotten him a hotel, but we had an extra bedroom and in our apartment. And so I said, you can just stay with us because I also needed help with the kids. I had problems trying to find nannies in Spain. And so I thought, oh, great, Pat's here. You can take him to school and he can feed them and he can do all the things that the nanny would do since my nanny's too flaky. So it was also, sort of self-serving. And when he was visiting, he seduced me.
It's easy.
Good.
I was low. I mean, I was working in Spain and being the boss is kind of lonely, and I worked all the time. So I had no opportunity to make any friends outside of work. And so I was lonely, and Patrick came and he was so sweet and loving towards me. And sex was never a problem for us. We always had great sex. So, and I hadn't had sex in months. And so when he seduced me, I just gave in. It didn't really feel right, but it also didn't really feel that wrong.
And it was at the turning point?
That was probably the start of the turning, because it wasn't like, oh, we're back together, but it was like a little tiny window opened. Like, oh, I do love this man and he is the father of my children. And if there's an opportunity for us to be together, then maybe I should be open to that instead of angry.
So there was that part, and then later that winter, our daughter had an accident on the ski mountain, and
this is when I was home.
I went and met them at the hospital, and I think there was another with the window open wider there, and she realized that
no one will love our children more than the two of us do, and that's a strong connection for us.
Yeah. And then the final window, I think the thing that just charted open for good was when I got myself to the point, because the only way that we were going to get back together was if we owned our shit, and I had my own shit I had to own, and she had some as well. And we both kind of got on top of that over the course of the year. And I think the final straw was when I told her I knew that I got myself to a place where I was going to be happy either with or without her, no matter what she chose to do.
And I was like, oh my God, I love you. That is sexy. You don't need me. You're in.
Now, did you know what your stuff was before you guys split up?
No. I don't think either of us had a clue what it was, but
I knew what hers was.
Yeah, I knew what his was too. We knew what each other's were.
But you weren't in agreement that you owned that yet.
Exactly.
You didn't know that yet.
We were in a place where we could, we were blaming each other for everything. So what's funny is when you're apart for a while, then shit's still not right. You're looking in the mirror like, well, I can't blame Patty for this.
Yeah.
It's still me.
I had some help from a cousin who I basically blame Sam for the first 4 or 5 months. And, I just held on to the anger in that. My cousin's like, you got to quit complaining about the situation and look at what you brought negative to it and work on that, because that's all you have control over. And if when you see the negativity there, then you want to get rid of that, because you don't want to take it into your next relationship, no matter who it is. So
good advice. Now, had you tried any kind of therapy or counseling before you decided to split up?
Nope. I wasn't willing to try. I was really done. I didn't want to try counseling. I wasn't interested.
I suggested it, and she said she'd think about it, but she ended up moving before we ever got around to any of it.
All right, so now we're at the seduction, we're at the hospital, we're now in the realization, and now how's this playing out in terms of you're moving back in, you're deciding to go to therapy. Where did you learn your tools? What happened next?
After I told her, I kind of because I probably seduced her 6 or 7 more times over the course of that year. And
Yeah, my mother was horrified to find out I was still sleeping with my quote ex-husband.
she's not my biggest fan. Anyway, I booked this couples massage at a ski resort. As luck would have it, the person I was going to invite couldn't go. And so Sam called me at the last minute.
I was the runner-up.
She called me last minute and said, I'll be in town Friday. Are you doing anything? And I'm like, yeah, I've got something we can go do. So I took her up there, and we had a great night. We had a long talk, and that's kind of when we made the decision to get back together. I told her that, like I said earlier about how I'd gotten myself to that place. And she said, well, maybe we ought to try it again. And I said, the only way that I would be willing to do that is if you stop making your job number one, because I think it's what tore us apart. And then I think she said something along the lines of, well, I'd love to retire. And I'm like, well, we can, because I got my business where I needed it to be. And so that made it a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So I said, okay. And then just as quickly as our first marriage, I went back to Spain. I quit my job. I mean, I had to stay for a few months to clean some stuff up, and we took advantage of that. And Patty came out. We went on a nice trip all through Spain and with the kids, and we got back together. When we got back together, it was for me, it was very refreshing, and I felt so much joy and love towards Patty. I had so much appreciation for him that he would take the financial, run with the financial ball, so that I could just sort of be. I had like I said, I was pregnant in 19, and I just never stopped running. So it was really nice to be able to stay home with the kids. And that's one of the things in my life that, I don't regret too many things, but having worked so much when the kids were young, it makes me feel sad. So it was beautiful that he said, yes, I'll work and you can stay home for a while.
Nice. Okay. And so then you decided then to start getting some tools. Tell me about that.
Well, the biggest tools were recognizing
that we had to work on ourselves first.
Yeah, what was wrong with ourselves that enabled us to get to where we were, and kind of constantly winning that battle. So, one of mine was insecurity that manifested itself in jealousy. And it's something that never completely goes away, in my opinion, but I just keep it locked away. In other words, I start feeling it, and then you'd ask those seemingly innocent, passive-aggressive questions, and I don't ask those questions anymore. And honestly, it doesn't flare up anywhere near like it used to. So learning how to kind of deal with those type of things, not owning her. I used to call it owning her shit, or my cousin called it that, where she would come home and act a certain way, and then I would feel hurt and be mad at her for 2 days, and she would have no idea what my problem was. That kind of behavior I had to get rid of. So that all helped quite a bit. And then, we read some books along the way, like The 5 Love Languages, and actually learned that there's different ways that people like to be loved, which we had no idea.
Yeah, that took our relationship to a new high also, realizing that we're trying to love each other in different ways, the way that we want to be loved.
Yep.
Like I wanted Pat to do the laundry and do the dishes, and he just wanted to make love all the time. So once we figured that out, it made a big difference.
Patrick's love language is touch, and yours is acts of service.
Yes, ma'am.
Yep.
Okay. So besides 5 love languages, what other books do you think helped you?
Crucial Conversations helped me especially, but I think it also helped Patrick with regards to our communication. I thought that having a temper tantrum and yelling at people was an effective way of communicating, because in business, it actually served me very well. And actually with the kids when they were younger, I could get things done that way. But as the kids got older, and as Patty and I were, in our relationship, I could see that it wasn't effective in my personal relationships anymore. And so this book, it's pretty dry. It's written in a way, it's written for business really, and it's all based on research, which is big for me. I'm a very analytical person. I wasn't super emotional. And so it's laid out in a way that really I could relate to, about how ineffective all of the ways that I had been communicating with everyone in my life was not right. So it turned it was like a big paradigm shift for me. So that was that book changed our lives.
I think it's one of the better relationship/parenting books out there. We read so many parenting books trying to figure out how to best parent one or both of our kids in certain times in our lives, and because we were lost there as well. But But that book, when it comes to like putting people in a safe place and having a conversation with them, then I think it's better than any of the parent books we read.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Now, did you guys ever end up going to therapy?
Nope.
Nope.
I'm not a big fan of therapy, JJ. I'm just going to be honest. I've been to a lot of therapy. Our kids have been to therapy. Patty and I have gone to family therapy with our kids too. We've never gone to couples therapy, but my experience is sometimes that the therapists are really good at getting out all the shit, like pulling out all of the trauma and the bullshit that's happened to you and getting it out all on the table. But sometimes, and maybe I've just gone to bad counselors, I don't know, they don't know how to put you back together. And so that was my experience with some of the counseling that we had. And I am not a huge fan.
And it's also, there's a ton of focusing in the rearview mirror when you're doing that, you know? So, this past trauma must be why you're thinking the way that you're thinking. And all of a sudden you have a crutch.
Yeah, and I don't know that I believe, I don't know if I believe that the history of your relationship is super important. Maybe it is. I just like to look forward. You know, I'm more interested in what's happening in this moment and what our future looks like, and focusing on what I want that to be and giving that my attention and energy.
So you guys have written a book about your experience, and what are your tips for people?
We have a lot.
Yeah.
We have a lot.
So what are give me a top 3.
Okay, my favorite is, we call it Just Say Yes, but Patty and I, as you mentioned, Patty's love language is touch. And I thought after we learned about the love languages that I was really being good about, touching him and doing, expressing his love language. That is, unless I was tired or I wasn't in the mood or, I had a stomach ache. I had a plethora of reasons why I didn't want to have sex. And Pat one night says to me, "Have we ever had sex and you regretted it?" And I thought about it and I was like, well, regret? No, I've never regretted it. And he said, well, I want to try an experiment. I just want you to say yes to me anytime I want to have sex. I did not want to do this. I thought, oh my God, the sexorama that's about to happen to me, I don't know if I'm going to survive it, but I thought, well, I might as well give it a go. So we tried it for a month. And the first few days were pretty exciting. We made a lot of love, and then it kind of tapered off to the normal, 2 to 3 times a week kind of a rhythm that we had been in before. But it was different because Patrick wasn't, he got so comfortable and more happy, and things were easier. And I also felt the same way. I didn't have to come up with excuses why not to do it. I just had to do it. And in that month, I learned that no matter how I'm feeling, that making love with Patty always makes me feel good. I mean, we enjoy sex together. And so after the month ended, we never stopped our experiment. We just say yes. Now Patrick, though, has to say yes to me too, because I think sexually we've sort of swapped places in some ways. I'm a little hornier than he is now.
Okay, so that's 1. Just say yes to sex.
1, just yes.
Honestly, with that one, I think the biggest disconnect we had with it is I like to get in bed at night and maybe fool around, and she's like, I'm too tired, we'll do it in the morning. But she has her things that she does in the morning, like meditate and do all these things. And so by the time she gets around to saying, okay, let's go now, I'm like in full on work mode. So we would have that disconnect. And that's what I was trying to avert. I'm like, look, it's nighttime. This isn't going to take long. 20 minutes or something. Or do you really need 8 hours and 45 minutes of sleep, or would 8 hours and 25 be okay? And so that was how that conversation started. You asked for 3. I think one of the most important is to learn how to love yourself. And until you really get kind of full or I don't know what's the word we call it, self-full.
Self-full, yeah. Not selfish, but self-full.
You're not going to ever give love at your absolute best until you learn how to love yourself.
I think it's very difficult, and I think it's also not a destination but a journey.
Yeah, agreed. It's hugely difficult. It's one I think I struggle with more than Sam does, actually, because I'm beating myself up all the time. And then if somebody else mentions something that you were just beating yourself up about, then you tend to get short and snap at them because you don't really know what was going on in your head. So it's one of those things that if you work on it, definitely improves your relationship.
Yes, I teach these things. So I've got events and things that people can come to. So I would agree that it is a journey, but it is something that people do need to learn and to take, because unless you're actually focused on it, you're not going to be aware if you're doing it or not. And we're going to revert back to habits and patterns and models that we had as children and as siblings and as wives and spouses and things. So we're really just playing off of each other. So I definitely am on board on they learn how to love yourself as being a journey, but as to also being, I think, the first step in any successful relationship, because then you're not trying to get something out of somebody else to validate you or to make you feel safe or comfortable. You have to go within. And when I'd asked you earlier about, because while I'm with you on that there are a lot of bad therapists, and that the therapeutic process for some is also, it drags out for a long time. I mean, I just put on my first retreat, and there's 2 more on the books. And the reason why I have been so called to do it is because I do believe in the therapeutic process, not therapy in general, but the therapeutic process. And you need to create time and space to heal and to identify. And you do need to dive down deep sometimes and pull some of that stuff out, because it's the things that you're not aware of that create these patterns and habits. But it's really hard to do, I think, in a 50-minute session with a therapist once a week, because by the time you start digging, even if you hit something, your session's over and you have to leave. So it is really sometimes too uncomfortable, and you don't really get anywhere because you haven't really solved anything. You've just been looking at the pain, and the pain doesn't actually really help you. So, but one of the most effective therapies, I believe, for couples therapy is called imago therapy by Harville Hendricks. Do you know about imago?
Yeah. Actually, I have a good friend of mine went with her husband. Actually, it's just her partner. I don't know. I don't think they're married, but and it changed their relationship immensely. Like they're very close now. They love imago.
So the reason I asked you in the beginning if you've realized a spiritual reason for your relationship, Imago has done a ton of study on relationships, and it's an amazing process because it really is based on the belief that you choose your partner to heal the wounds of your past. That is why we choose our partners. It's not, out of all the billions of people on the planet, why did you choose each other? Like, what was the reason? Was it just because you thought she was pretty and because he was hot? No, it's way deeper than that. It's so much more complex than that. And so if you take the journey to say, I choose my partner to heal the wounds of my past, or I chose you, right? We can get out of the blame game because I chose you. So there's a reason I chose you, and there's something in this for me to heal. While there is a need to heal separately and to heal your own stuff, being in relationship, and this is what I've learned about Imago that I didn't understand until I went through it, was that because I do a lot of work on myself. I work on myself all the time, and I've done a very good job of being able to heal all kinds of stuff and transform all kinds of stuff. But there is only some very specific things that we can heal in relationship. It's almost like relationship becomes that spiritual, like you said about sex. It becomes that place, that sacred place where you can, that's the only place where you can heal really some of these deepest things, because of the trust and the safe space, and because of the love and because of the acceptance that you can get from your partner if you're aware of it. And the problem is a lot of us aren't aware of it, so that's why we decide to leave, and we run and we go, well, this is too hard and it must be your fault. And so I think the first step for most people, and I think it's brilliant what you guys have come up with in terms of the learn how to love yourself. I sort of figured that out for myself in that, why did I manifest my husband? And when I took a look back at what I was doing, it was because I was in the healthiest, happiest. I was getting all my needs met. I didn't need anything. I didn't need a person to come fulfill me or to make me feel loved. I bought flowers for myself. I had dinner dates and dancing dates with friends, and I had plenty of male companionship in my life. I don't remember if I was having sex. If I did, I was probably having I had a vibrator. So it doesn't, like, I didn't need, there was nothing that I was like, oh my God, I need someone to do this for me. I feel like until I have a partner, I can't do blah, whatever that was. And so I was in that very strong place of self-love. So now I want to ask you guys, how did you get there individually? Because I know I heard you guys on someone else's show, and Patrick, you were talking about that you learned how to love yourself and you were going to be happy regardless of whether you guys stayed together or not. Is there one or two things that you figured out about yourself or that you did to love and respect yourself at a new level?
Sam can go on about this for a long time because she has like a whole routine that she does every single day that I envy. I haven't gotten there yet, so I'm a total work in progress on all of it. But I'm still at the basic level of just trying not to beat myself up, And when I know that I'm a better spouse and I'm better equipped to love Sam and our children and everything else when I'm not doing that and when I'm content with who I am. So it's it's all part of the journey. I wouldn't say I hit any one spot where, I mean, there was that place where I knew I could be happy with or without Sam, but I still had tons of shit, and I've definitely have less than I did then. But depending on who the person is, they might look at me and say, "Wow, you still got a metric crap ton of shit over there." So I don't know.
Do you think that awareness though, like when your cousin said to you, stop blaming, do you think that was the big turning point for you? That awareness of what did you bring to the table and what can you make change? Like what can you focus on to make change?
Yeah, there were two epiphanies that happened. I've had four, I think, in my life. So two of them happened when we were apart. Yeah, owning Sam's stuff, is a big one. When she's in a bad mood or says something snarky to me, rather than taking it personally, I don't have to own that, and I don't have to let it change my mood, and I don't have to reflect it back on her. And so that was a really big one. The other ones, I think it's one of the 12 steps or something with AA, and that is, there's only so much you have control over, and spending a bunch of time worrying about things you cannot control or people you cannot control is a complete and total waste of time. So catching yourself doing that and stopping it right away is also a great way to be much happier.
Okay, Sam, your turn. So what did you realize about yourself, or what did you own in a different way, or what turning point did you have when you guys were apart?
I don't know if I really had, I don't know with regards to self-love if I had many turning points, honestly, with regards to self-love. Although, part of how I have learned and am learning about self-love is radical self-care. And I recognized that when we were apart that I needed to take better care of myself, that I hadn't been taking care of myself for many years. With my job came first, my kids came second. If I put them in order, then probably I came third, and then Patty would come fourth. So I was always on the go. I ate poorly. I didn't exercise. I didn't take any time to get to know myself. I had no idea who I was. So learning that radical self-care where I exercise, I take care of my body, I eat right, I meditate so that I can connect spiritually with myself. And I do a lot of self-exploration, and I find new things out about myself all the time, and it's magical.
Good. And now how long have you guys been married now?
22 years. We're coming up on 22 years.
We've been together
Nice.
for over 22 years. I think our 22-year anniversary is a couple months away.
In June, right? Yeah.
Wow. When did you decide to write the book? So you were apart at year 10, you got back together, and then at what point did you decide you wanted to write a book?
Year 21.
Year 21. Because you had been helping other people, or you could see what was going on with them, or you just wanted to, put it away because it was one of those things that you wanted to make sure you got down as sort of your life's work as a couple?
Probably both. I mean, we have had a number of couples come to us and ask for advice because, people know our story that we were apart for a year and managed to somehow salvage the relationship. And people that know us too feel the love between us. When you're around us, I think you can tell that we are enamored with each other, and people are like, how do you do that? You guys have been married so long. So part of it was a shortcut to giving advice to people that needed it. And part of it was like, what do we have to offer the world? What do we know about that we could offer the world? And we thought, we feel like we're in such a beautiful place that maybe we can teach people about love.
And if we'd learned, to me, it's kind of, it's a shortcut or some, Sam doesn't like it when I say shortcuts, tips, and hacks, but if we'd learned a lot of the tools that we've learned over the years and been able to implement those in the first 10 years, I think it would have changed the landscape of that relationship then, and we may never even had to go through the separation. So
Absolutely.
Okay, so tell people about the book, where they can get the book.
The book is called Bigger Love, How to Have the Love of Your Life for the Rest of Your Life. You can buy it on Amazon. We also have an Audible version, so you can look up the Audible version. If you don't like our voices, don't do that because we read it ourselves.
Yeah. Well, Sam records music, so we have a studio in our house.
Yeah, we have a little recording studio in there. And our website is biggerlove.com. And we also have a Facebook group, which is Bigger Love Book. So you can reach us all kinds of places. We'd love to hear from people.
And then there's the Audible versions available on iTunes as well.
I appreciate you guys coming on the show. Thank you so much.
Hey, JJ, thank you so much for having us. This has been fun.
Just for the record, Bigger Love Book is the Facebook page. The page that's called Bigger Love is something completely different.
Okay. Let's make sure we make that clear for everybody. Bigger Love Book is the Facebook page.
The other one's pretty exciting, though, too.
Yeah.
It's just not us.
Well, excellent. Well, congratulations, guys, on your book and your relationship. And thank you for inspiring us and giving people hope, because that's what people want, and to know that there are other people out there struggling with some of the same things and have overcome them. And that's the point of today's show, was to want to showcase you and your book and your learning and your teachings, so that other people who are struggling know that there is hope and there is love to be had. So thank you.
Thank you.